Tony will be producing a copy of the meeting, and there'll be an online version through YouTube. You can see the meetings. We have our former meetings, past meetings on YouTube too. So let's just start. Hi, I'm Bart Reed, Executive Director of the Transit Coalition. We're an advocacy group. We do different types of projects like educational programs. Like this is an educational program. We have one coming up in November on planes and trains and the new 96th Street station along with the automated people mover. In December we have regional rail with the regional rail team. In January we have the San Fernando Valley to West LA undefined rail project with 4 alternatives. In February, first meeting in February, we have the head of Metrolink coming to speak. After that we'll have the West Santa Ana branch. And then anybody interested in private-public partnerships, raise your hands. Anybody? We'll be having somebody to come on private-public partnerships. We had a fellow a couple years ago, and it was actually a very, very popular meeting. So, anyways, as I said, I'm Bart Reed of the Transit Coalition. We have meetings coming up, and I'm going to look into some potential tours. You know, if there's tours possible for the opening of the Crenshaw line and the subways or other projects, then we'll look into seeing what we can do to get that tour going, because I think there's a few people who would like to see some of the inner workings of the system. Anyways, so Monica knows who's here. We'll start with introductions. And I want to mention for a minute Paul Dyson, if you'd stand up and tell a little bit. Paul is one of our sponsors with the Rail Passengers Association of California, and we've had a close working relationship. We actually want to see a rail extension, a double tracking between Van Nuys and Chatsworth, which unfortunately there wasn't enough activism a couple years ago and we lost the double tracking project. But now today at the Metro board meeting, despite busloads of people being bussed in to be against the bus rapid transit project between Chatsworth, Northridge Mall, Cal State Northridge, and the Orange Line, and then onward to and the Red Line, and then on to Pasadena, we did pass a transit project for the Valley today. So we'd like to see some more projects done. Paul's group advocates for these types of improvements. They're a premier group that's 20, 30, 40 years old, and that's it. Paul?
Good evening, everybody. Paul Dyson with Railpack. I won't make a long speech because we're running late, and that won't do for public transportation, right? So, but I just want to let you know that, first of all, thank you all for coming and supporting these meetings. There used to be much more in the way of active transportation clubs in Los Angeles when I came here 40 years ago, and it's good to see people participating in these kind of events and spreading information, learning about the industry, and then also networking and meeting other folks. So it's really great to see you here. I've lived in the San Fernando Valley for 40 years. It's great finally to see some real transportation projects moving forward. And I'd also thank our speaker for giving up her evening. So enjoy the show. Thanks.
And we're going to start in a second. I should just mention a few housekeeping things. We do have food and sandwiches, and if you want a second sandwich so we don't have to carry them back home again, that would be a delight if you could help yourself to a second. And we do have food and drinks and chips. So I want to welcome you to our meeting tonight. I think I have everybody's business cards, so if you're not on the list, you'll be put on the list. Many years ago, conceptually, we thought that it would be kind of a neat idea if we took the Santa Monica airline, which went from Santa Monica to downtown Los Angeles, and had been sitting there for decades. And my friend and colleague, Darrell Clark, went to the city of Santa Monica and attempted to purchase the line. Eventually, I believe Southern Pacific sold the line to Metro, and then a number of people from the city of Santa Monica, including Darrell and others, went forth and said, what if we were to reinstate the rail line that brought passengers to downtown until like 1952. It took freight until the 70s, but in used to make a round trip to Santa Monica every day. And then somewhere along the line, I don't remember where I met Monica. It was either on the Expo project or on the Foothill Gold Line project. And so I've known Monica for like probably a long time, because we don't want to tell anybody how old we all are. But truthfully, Monica has been working on bringing rail projects to Los Angeles for a long part of her career, and successfully. I mean, today there was an announcement that not only is the Expo line going to have more service, but the new A line, which some of you knew was the blue line for a long time, is going to reopen next week, and it's going to have back to 6-minute rush hour service on both the Expo line and the other line. The Metro's operating people decided to reduce the Expo line from every 6 minutes to 8 minutes, figuring that they could run it better, and it was pandemonium. The people on the line are all wired up, and hundreds and hundreds of complaints rolled into Metro and got through to the directors, and they put it on the board to upgrade the line back to 6-minute service. So it opens November 2nd, and both Expo and A line open the 6-minute rush hour frequency. So that's all good news. Activism helps, and we keep building these projects. And along the way, we got this idea that we'd reinstate the Van Nuys Boulevard line. I wrote it in 1952, believe it or not, so it was an infant thing. But the neat part is that it's coming back again, and it went through a couple years of research. It didn't have money coming through to the line, and finally we had a couple measures, Measure R, Measure M, and I think Measure R brought in a whole bunch more money, so the line, instead of being a bus project, it's going to be a rail line. And so Monica has taken over from the planning group, and she's the one that finishes the environmental and gets this project rolling. So I wanted to welcome everybody to Monica Bourne and give her a good hand.
All right. Okay, let's see if I can get this to work. Yeah.
Your name is?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for bearing with us. Welcome to Metro. So, East San Fernando Valley, we are right now updating the graphics here. You will no longer see a bus. You will see a light rail. I was hoping to get it in time for tonight, but unfortunately they didn't have it ready. But this graphic will be updated for the environmental document. So, with that said, okay, let's see if I can do this. And show, no, next, okay. Bear with me. There we go. Okay, all right. So like Bart said, Van Nuys Boulevard used to have a rail system down there. Just thought it would be nostalgic to show what used to be there at one point in time. And basically, after that system was ripped out, what we have come to find out on Van Nuys Boulevard, it is full of utilities. So it's an interesting project in that we have lots of coordination with City of LA and lots of third parties. But it makes it a bigger party that way, right? So we're gonna have lots of fun here. So there's our nostalgic pictures. Let's see if I can keep on going.
I think you can just click.
I tried that one. Okay, I'll try the next one. Okay, all right. So here is the quarter. If you're not familiar with it, let me see it. Don't fall asleep, okay? Is that better? Okay. All right. So here is the quarter. We are in the valley. We are starting basically at Orange Line, heading north along Van Nuys Boulevard, 9.2 miles of light rail, 6.7 within the middle of Van Nuys Boulevard, 2.5 down the Metro right-of-way on the northern end up there. We've got basically 14 stations along the alignment. We've got a maintenance facility that's basically right here near one of the Metrolink lines. We are part of Measure M funding, and we are also part of the 28 by 28 projects. So basically, we are trying to get ourselves done in time to support the Summer Olympics. And we are right now, what we're saying right now in the environmental document, we are estimated at 1.3 billion. We are definitely revisiting that cost based upon the information that we are finding out as we advance the design here. Right now, the environmental group, the planning group, is finishing up the environmental document. The final environmental document, we are supposed to achieve ROD December of this year, and then also certification January of next year. We are a CEQA NEPA document. This summer, we awarded our contract to Gannett Fleming, and we are very excited to have them on board. Gannett Fleming is started to advance the design from the environmental process, which is about 10%, and they're going to be taking it up to at least 30%. And then in some cases, like with the street improvements, taking up to 60%, all to support getting our utilities relocated out of the way to clear the path for a design builder. And then, well, let me keep on going, and then we can talk about that. Yeah, I don't know about that. Okay, there we go. So in the valley, we've got lots of other projects that are coming on board or in the analysis process right now. So we've got Metro Orange Line improvement study that's going on. So basically at our connection with Van Nuys and the Orange Line is going to be looking at an aerial station over there to help improvements for the headways and the run time for Orange Line. They're also looking at Sepulveda too, but of course I'm focused on Van Nuys Boulevard. So we're working closely with Hitesh on that. We've also got the Metro Regional Rail that is looking at Brighton to Roxford, which is basically taking the current existing single track and putting another track adjacent to it. As part of East San Fernando Valley, we are just looking at the single track, the existing single track today, and relocating it out of the way so that we can put in 2 new light rail tracks. But we are also making sure that there is room, sufficient room, for a 4th track, the Brighton to Roxford one. We won't be doing the final design on that 4th track, but we will be taking care of that, the single track that's out there today. So we'll be advancing the design there. We are also working closely with Sepulveda Transit Corridor, which Bart already talked about too. That one will be taking people basically from the valley all the way south, hopefully to the airport. North San Fernando Valley Transit Corridor is a new BRT that we're looking at going east-west through the valley that will be crossing Van Nuys Boulevard. And then we've also got the Metro Emergency Security Operations Center that will be basically right over here. Okay. All right. Okay. So Van Nuys Boulevard, the street running portion of it. So today, Van Nuys Boulevard basically has 2 to 3 lanes of traffic in each direction, 135 foot to less than 100 foot back of sidewalk to back of sidewalk right of way. This, of course, gives us a nice challenge to be working at trying to fit in our light rail tracks, traffic lanes, sidewalks, all of that. Left turns are currently allowed on Van Nuys Boulevard, and we will continue to allow them, but in strategic locations. On-street parking is also heavily allowed on Van Nuys Boulevard, and we've got also approximately 86 intersections that cross Van Nuys Boulevard. So right now, let's see, okay, there we go. So with Van Nuys, or East San Fernando Valley, with our light rail, we are planning on going right down the middle of Van Nuys Boulevard. We will be hopefully having 2 lanes of traffic out there by removing all of the on-street parking. There's about 1,300 parking spaces that we're taking off. This is disclosed in the environmental document that Walt Davis has been working on now for 6-7 years. But all the on-street parking will be taken off. And then we will also be allowing left turns at strategic locations. We basically are looking at, of the 86 intersections or crossings that are there today, we're narrowing them down to probably about 26 out there. So again, limiting the number of crossings so that we can maintain headway so that we can also, for safety, also limit the number of crossings there, interactions with vehicles, pedestrians. We also will be looking at our left turns out there too. We, for the most part, where there's a left turn today, we will be allowing that. In some cases, due to constraint of the area, we are eliminating some of the left turns, whether it's the northbound or the southbound. But again, trying to maintain as many of those left turns as we can today that are out there today. We are trying to maintain those too to keep the flow of traffic and access to schools and businesses and residential homes too. And like I said already too, we're also removing all of the on-street parking. There's a lot of parking off-street behind the businesses or in the residential areas. So we felt like, well, through the environmental process, we felt like we didn't have to replace them. We could remove them and not replace them because there was a sufficient number of parking spaces out there today. So what I'm trying to show here in this greeny little cross section here, again, is the two light rail systems, and then just showing the challenge of trying to fit this whole cross section in an area where there's limited right-of-way. And so that's something that we're working closely with City of LA on right now, because in some cases it gets to be a little bit challenging out there. And the idea is not to acquire right-of-way out there, because if you've been out there, you know that there's businesses, there's homes that are right up to the back of the sidewalk. So our project is trying to fit ourselves into there so that we have a safe system that works, but without having to disrupt businesses and homes out there by acquiring property. All right, so that's Van Nuys Boulevard. Okay, so then we move on to the Metro right-of-way. And right now today, it's a single track that's used by both Metrolink and UP. The Metro right-of-way and the section that we're looking at, which is 2.5 miles, it's about 100-foot right-of-way, but in some areas it does narrow down, specifically in the city of San Fernando. So we are looking at acquiring property there. And then with us coming along, we're going to put in 2 light rail tracks and then relocate that existing Metrolink track, Metrolink UP track, so that we can fit our tracks in there adjacent to it. And then we're also acquiring property so that we can make our cross-section work. There's an existing bike path that's also in the Metro right-of-way. For the most part, we are not touching it, but in one location, or the location through City of San Fernando, we are looking at relocating it, and we need to acquire property in order to do that. Okay. All right, so again, with advancing the design right now with Gannett Fleming on board, we're looking at the next 24 months to advance the design and support of the procurement process to get a design builder on board. And then we're looking at, with a design builder, releasing an RFQ next year, probably towards the end of next year. We're going to do a 2-step process for the design builder. First starting with the RFQ and then releasing the RFP next year, middle of next year timeframe. So that we can start the process of hopefully doing some one-on-one meetings with them, and then also getting the proposals in. So we have a good, we have time to evaluate, and then present it to the board and get a design builder to start groundbreaking in 2022. So we are looking at right now March of 2022 for the groundbreaking time period, and then from there we are looking at completion of the project in 2027, so we have about a year for the testing so that it's open in time for the Olympics in the summer of 2028. So Gannett Fleming will be on board throughout this whole process, starting with advancing the design, then helping out for the, through the procurement process, and then design support during construction. So we've got 9 years with them, and we really like them. So. All right, so that's the engineering consultant schedule. What they're doing right now with the design, advancing it, again, 30% overall, and then in some cases, like with the street improvements, advancing them even more. The idea being there that we have got to show where the curb lines are going to be, where our tracks are gonna be, so we can identify what utilities are in conflict. And then if the idea is to relocate those utilities, then we have to know where they can be relocated to. So the idea here is trying to improve our process here of construction by starting early. I hope we have started early enough, and so that we can have the time to relocate these utilities as needed or protect them in place. We have started quite a few meetings with our third parties. Basically, I think we've met with everybody that we need to, but then we also need to continue to meet with them as we move forward. Some of our big third-party agencies that we're working with, of course, our DWP. There's quite a few vaults underneath the guideway, or where the guideway will be along Van Nuys Boulevard, and then there's also overhead lines that we're going to be dealing with too, whether we're the wires are too low, or in some cases the poles are conflicting with the layout of the street and where the sidewalk will be. And then we've got communication lines, we've got City of LA utilities out there too, the county, we've got a nice storm drain, and we've got a few different storm drains along the alignment too. So we are trying to meet with everyone and figure out a path forward so that, again, either we're relocating or protecting in place, with the idea being by 2022, getting the corridor cleared out as much as possible, so when the design builder comes on board, they can move ahead. In addition to all of that, we've got our grade crossings too. Like I said, there's right now we're anticipating 26 vehicular crossings along Van Nuys Boulevard. There'll be a few more pedestrian-only crossings there, because we've got our stations that also are along Van Nuys Boulevard, and then we've got the existing grade crossings along the Metro right-of-way. So all of that, we are trying to move forward with the PUC applications. The last time I worked on the PUC applications, they had a little bit easier process, and that was Expo 2, and they no longer do that method anymore. So now we have to go into a little bit more arduous way of doing these. So we're starting early again, and trying to work with them. I've already taken them out, PUC out on a tour. So we're hoping to get those in and start the approval process, so that hopefully we can get them either approved or close to being approved by the time the design builder comes on board. We also have systems work that's going on by a separate contract from Gannett Fleming. So Metro again is trying something new. We've got systems consultants on board, contracted directly with us, but they are working closely with Gannett Fleming as they advance the systems design for the project. And then we also have, with this project too, some new things as far as first last mile. We're trying a different approach there. They're already, our first last mile team has already been out to the community, doing several community meetings, community walks, working closely with City of LA, City of San Fernando. And the goal is by January of next year, they're hoping to go to the board and get approval on the options that will be going forward as part of this project. With first last mile, right now we're looking at, it's basically ways to feed people into our project area, into our stations. So it's going to be, their focus has been on pedestrian lights, trees, bikeways, that sort of thing. So again, that our patrons can get to our stations, hopefully safer, quicker, easier, all of that just feeding into our system that we're focused on Van Nuys Boulevard. So, and we're also doing with our stations too, the kit of parts, which right now Crenshaw has been implementing over there. So all of that is going on for the next 2 years. And so here's an overall schedule. Again, we've got our design consultant who started in August, board certification and first last mile plan in January of next year. We'll start right-of-way acquisition after we get the board certification, utility relocations also at that time too. Final design and construction, so we're gonna have our groundbreaking in early 2022 is the goal. And then we'll begin testing for our system in summer of 2027, and the revenue of operations summer of 2028 in time for the Olympics. Right. There we go. So questions, and there's my contact information too. Oh, I don't know who went first. Him? Okay, all right, there you go. Yes.
Okay, where are you joining the Metrolink?
Yes, with 2 locations, yes.
And you said that track, Metrolink track is 1 track, and you're gonna have 2 tracks.
Yes.
But isn't Metrolink planning to make 2 tracks for themselves? So then you have 4 tracks?
Yes. So, I believe you're talking about this
Yes.
portion here, right? Yes. So there's an existing Metrolink track today, the single track, that will be moving, basically shifting northeast here. We are, as we advance the design, still showing the 4th track there to show that it can be built. But that 4th track is part of a different project, Brighton to Roxford. So we will only be building the single track, the existing one today, and then Regional Rail will be building that 4th track when they get the funding.
Do they have funding for that 4th track?
They currently, Brighton to Roxford is more than just our area. This area here, it continues on. From what I understand, there is some funding outside of our area, but not necessarily right here. So, but that's Brighton to Roxford, and they have, that's Regional Rail, they have their own updates and website and all of that, so. But we are trying to show that the 4th track can be built. Okay? Okay, yes?
Hi, well, you just answered part of my question. I just
Okay.
wanted to clarify that absolutely you're going to leave space for that 4th track then, right?
Yes.
What concerns me is that on the 11th of December 2007, there was a derailment of a freight train in Denver, Littleton to be precise, where a coal train, the UP coal train, derailed, and a Denver light rail train on an adjacent track ran into the wreckage, or at least the coal, and also derailed. And they got lucky because it was 6 o'clock in the morning, there was only a couple of dozen people on the train. As I'm looking at it today, is that they have 120-foot right-of-way there. This, as I see it, you said there's 100 feet,
Correct.
but that includes the bikeway.
Correct. Yes.
So you've got a lot less than 100 feet with 80 feet, so more like 80 or less for 4 tracks.
With the bike path, I think the existing bike path is 12. Am I remembering right?
12 or 13.
12 or 13?
Well, that's
Yeah.
what it looked. I looked on
Okay.
Google Earth, which is not the
Okay.
most accurate thing, but close
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
I guess the nub of the question is, did you do a risk assessment
Yes.
of these 15,000-ton rock trains that come through there and are going to be adjacent to the light rail tracks?
Yeah.
Because it seems to me that that's a serious risk.
Yeah, I mean, we have been working with Metrolink and been sharing the design that started in the environmental process, the 10% design. And now that Gannett Plumbing's on board, we've continued to work with them. And Metrolink right now has not blessed the design yet, because we're still advancing it right now. But the idea, the overall idea with separation between our system and Metrolink and UP's on there too, is something similar to what you would see out on like Foothill Extension out there, where you've got light rail and also Metrolink and freight adjacent to it. So right now, we're looking at meeting the requirements for the spacing, the clearance between the two. And then we're also looking at a barrier, and then also intrusion detection too, which has been utilized on Foothill Extension, and it's something that we're still going to be talking about with UP to get their concurrence on that too.
Well, the Foothill Extension has a little local train once a day with about 10 cars. It's not really quite in the same category.
When you get to the portion where Metrolink is located, it is the same. Actually, I think even over there, they might even have 2 tracks for Metrolink over there. So I'm seeing some nodding from Jackie, so. So, yeah, so we are still in the process of getting concurrence from both Metrolink and UP, but the idea is to start with meeting the criteria for the clearance and then also talking about barrier and intrusion detection with them.
And that same system exists at Portland right now, the TriMet extension out to Willamette. So that's what we're working on here.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Okay?
Well, thank you for the answer.
Okay. And hopefully we don't have any derailment too, so.
Well, I just
Yeah.
remember Glendale, when you had one train hit another train that hit another train, and you know, unless you're really lucky, or unless you're really unlucky, I guess, perhaps, but you've got to assess the likelihood of those events and
Correct.
see whether you can offset it or mitigate it.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, as Bart has alluded to or talked about in the beginning, this is not my first rail system. This is not my group's, my team's first rail system. We definitely are trying to apply lessons learned, not only for this area, but also from other areas too. We also are doing risk assessment too. We've already started that. And in fact, what I didn't talk about here is that this project is a potential P3 project. And that process of the risk assessment has been developed for whether we go design build or P3. So definitely something on our radar is not only the safety, but also getting approval from them, being able to come in and build it. So yes, it is something that's definitely on our radar. I think I saw that gentleman first back over here. Yeah.
Yeah, so while we're up in this part of the map,
Sure.
Van Nuys and San Fernando, really, it's gonna get a station for this line. But I'm wondering if there's been any outreach to Regional Rail and Metrolink about building an infill station at that stop for them too. So that way, if you wanna take the Metrolink to downtown, you don't have to do the jog back into San Fernando, you can just get on the train there. If you're, taking the train, you don't need to park. So has there been any outreach to that team, to Metrolink and Regional Rail about a joint like a transfer station platform?
We definitely, and I believe you're talking about right here, when we
Yeah.
make the transition, right
Yeah.
there. We definitely have been coordinating with Metrolink. At this point in time, I'm not aware of a station that would be part of the Metrolink system over there. Frankly, I'm not sure if it would fit and all of that, but it's something that could be studied, I'm sure. But right now, I'm not aware of anybody having on their radar for that.
Can you put it on someone's radar?
I'm sorry?
Can you put it on the radar?
You can too, yeah. I mean, that's something, whether you come to a board meeting or you go to our website, provide comments there. But I think right now the focus with Metrolink has been putting in that fourth track,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, I mean, it sounds like maybe,
Okay.
but there's nothing right now that's in the works with it, so. Okay. Yes.
Two questions. One is on the southerly portion of Van Nuys Boulevard and also the northerly portion before San Fernando in the Pacoima area. There's currently bicycle lanes on Van Nuys Boulevard, so the first question is, are you going to provide replacement in proximity, not a mile away, but in proximity? And then the second question is, one of the alternatives for the Sepulveda Pass project is a subway under Van Nuys Boulevard from south of the Orange Line, but going up to the Van Nuys Metrolink station.
Right.
How would that affect, if that's selected and there's a subway under Van Nuys Boulevard, how would that affect your planning for what you're doing on the surface of Van Nuys Boulevard?
Okay, so I'll start with the bikeway, Orange Line, right? We're not touching the bikeway there, the existing one there. There's another bike lane that's on the street, and I believe it starts at Woodman and goes to 5, and then starts Laurel Canyon and goes up to San Fernando Road. Am I somewhat right, Matt? Maybe? Okay, more or less? Okay. So that's all existing. Like I said, we're not touching the Orange Line. but what's on Van Nuys Boulevard, because of the constraint of the street cross-section, right now what's been studied as part of the environmental document is removing the existing bike lane out there. What is talked about in the environmental document is that it may be with First Last Mile, that project that I've already talked about, where we're trying to get people to our stations. They're going to be taking a look at potential options for replacing it and working with City of LA. It's something that's definitely, we've been talking about with City of LA, is the removal and then the potential replacement on some adjacent street there. It is a bit challenging, the adjacent streets, and like you said, it may not be quarter of a mile, half a mile. It may be something that needs to be worked out, and we're still in the early process of that. Okay, and then as far as Sepulveda Transit Corridor, from what I understand, they are still in the feasibility study, right? So they are, I believe what they presented at their last community meeting was 4 options, one of which is going down Van Nuys Boulevard in the subway, or in a subway option there. And then Sepulveda was the other alignment there, whether it's heavy rail or monorail. If it's going down Van Nuys Boulevard, we basically are just at street level. We are not going to the level that the subway would be at. So it is something, though, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it's also something that we didn't look at as part of East San Fernando, the subway, that Sepulveda is looking at right now through their environmental process. So what I'm trying to say is that we, looked at East San Fernando being surface, except for the portion, hopefully I don't confuse everybody here. There was a portion in the draft environmental document that was subway, that was not selected, right? So, with East San Fernando Valley and the depth that we're looking at for our embedded tracks, and our OCS pole foundations and the utilities, Sepulveda would be underneath it.
How about any stations?
For Sepulveda?
For Van
For our
Nuys Boulevard,
Mhm.
yeah, Sepulveda project.
Yeah.
Any common stations that would come from below and up?
Right, yeah, I mean, that's something that we're Sepulveda, because it's challenging right now, right, with Sepulveda being still in their feasibility study. But from what I've seen, Sepulveda would have a station at the Orange Line Van Nuys station, right? And then the Metrolink Van Nuys station up there. If it's underground, it's still, that level of detail still has to get worked out. But right now, East San Fernando Valley, we're proceeding as we need to in order to get the project built. Sepulveda, as part of their environmental process, will then look at how to make it work, whether it's directly underneath it or off to the side, whatever it may be. But that's something that's this other study and this other avenue that is currently only in the beginning phases of the environmental process. Okay? Okay. Next question? Yeah.
Actually, just going back to the schedule, first of all, I'd like to applaud that you started the systems design in the preliminary. That's a really good thing.
That's a good
pushing
thing.
for
Okay,
that
good.
For a long time.
Yeah.
But the other thing is,
Yeah.
I would suggest that as time progresses, that you have contractors,
Mhm.
construction, take a look at it for constructability.
Not just the systems, or
Or
specifically on the
actually-
systems?
Specifically for systems, but also everything else.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say, I would like to start doing some industry review, getting some feedback out there. But right now, I don't have much to show. So work faster, no, just kidding. But yeah, so we don't have much to show at this point in time, so, but yes, I agree. I think, having that, construction feedback, would be good, so that we know we are, I mean, it's embedded track, it's not new technology, of what we're trying to do out
But
there.
it's still, when you're putting in substations
Yes.
and all the other stuff,
That can be headaches,
that
yeah.
that can give you a lot of headaches
Yes.
later on when
Yeah.
you finally get a system contractor on board and they're like, well, I don't know what this is.
Yes. Well, hopefully
you
they
don't
won't be
wanna do
saying that. But yes, I agree. I
We're
think
seeing
having.
a lot of those right now.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think having contractors come in and provide some feedback is valuable. So, yeah, because what we're thinking, you know, whether we're at Metro or a consultant, it's still good to get that kind of feedback, to know we're heading in the right direction. So, yeah, thank you. Yep.
Hey Monica, what's the headway you're planning for right now?
So right now, as part of the environmental document, it talks about 6-minute headway for the system. In the environmental document, I believe it's at a runtime of like 32, 34 minutes. We have taken another look at that as we're starting this advancing the engineering. It depends upon how much City of LA will work with us. You know, so right now we're looking at, it may take longer than that, but it's an opportunity for us to work with City of LA and just hopefully make it go faster than what we're
Remind me again how
looking
many
at.
intersections you're going through?
I'm sorry,
Remind me again how many intersections you're going through?
26 along Van Nuys Boulevard. Yeah.
That could be problematic.
It could, but at the same time too, it's 6.7 miles, right? So we gotta keep traffic moving east-west through there. Are you thinking reduce the number of grade crossings or?
It
Yeah, and it's a balance,
just
right?
seems, yeah, a balance would
Yeah.
be hard to do. I don't know if you can get any faster than that.
Right. Well, we're gonna try, we're doing with City of LA, so as part of Gannett Fleming's scope, we are taking a look at the traffic side, doing our analysis, FISM analysis, ARD, and yeah, so it's something that we're gonna go into more detail than what was in the environmental document. And looking at it as a corridor, the environmental document, as usual, just, looks at each intersection level of service. Now we're gonna go into more detail with it to see what we can do to speed it up if we can, so.
That's a lot of left turns. Maybe reducing left turns too.
We are reducing left turns, but basically each of those 26 will have either both north and southbound, or it could have just one. So, but again, just based upon the access that we need out there, we gotta maintain those left turns, so, yeah. Yeah, it's challenging. So, oh, yeah.
Did I understand you to say that on that, where you join the Metrolink to the north,
Mhm.
that there is no common station for transferring from one to the other?
There is a station planned at the Silmar Metrolink station, so that's where our terminus, the northern terminus would be. So it would be the Metrolink station, and then we'll be adjacent to them.
Okay, so the
Okay.
question was whether it would be another one at the turn.
Exactly. Yeah, where it turns, yeah.
And is there any grade separation planned along the route?
So there are no grade separations planned. There is an existing bridge that crosses the Pacoima Wash that Metrolink currently has a bridge on. So we are looking at building our own bridge and a new Metrolink bridge. So that's our only grade separation,
What
right?
about at this other Metrolink line at the south?
Existing.
No?
The lower
Which one?
Metrolink.
Oh, this one here? So right now, Metrolink is on its bridge. The road, Van Nuys Boulevard, goes underneath it, so we're just gonna follow the road.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the idea. Okay. Yes.
Maybe this is a comment. The junction point at the orange line,
Mhm.
if you put attention to that, to acquire land, to develop that, be a decent train station hub, that probably can be another area of life
Yeah,
in the valley.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the metro probably can make money to pay a lot of construction.
Yeah, so with the,
But if you miss this moment, then the land being acquired by a separate interest, then probably that opportunity would be eliminated.
Yeah, yeah, you're talking about where the orange line is? Yeah, that one, right now, we're still tweaking where the station will be for East San Fernando. But there's a lot of metro right-of-way that we use for parking. And right now, there's no plans to touch that as part of East San Fernando, because we think we're gonna need that parking. So it is something that could be, I'm sure we would be open to someone coming in and saying, okay, we want to take some of the land, put something else on it, but right now, it's not part of, it's not on my radar. Yes?
Monica, so for the 1.3 billion, you're saying there's no grade step, it's all at grade, street
It's all
running?
that grade, yeah.
So, I don't know what the neighborhoods think, you know, they always want the politics of grade separations, we've been through that before.
Yeah.
So, does the 1.3 include, cars and the system, I mean, okay, it seems like a lot for a street running system, but
Yeah.
not that you don't know how to do that. I know that you do, but I'm just curious that, do you think you'll get all the way through without grade steps? I don't know, I mean, we've been through 2 or 3 together, somebody always
Yeah.
gets a half a dozen grade steps in there.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I mean, this project I think it's unusual, I guess you could say. Walt Davis, who's the project manager on the planning side, I think he's done a great job in transparency with the community and letting them know through the environmental process, this is the money that has been allocated for the valley. And as Bart talked about too, this project started off as a BRT, right? It was with LADOT. So, and then LADOT handed off to Metro saying, okay, you guys take it. So Walt has been through trying to find money and Measure R and Measure M passed, and so he's been able to cobble it together. And light rail was selected, you know, through the environmental process as our locally preferred alternative. There was an option to go underground subway for 2 miles, and Walt was very transparent in that we don't have enough money for that. So if you want the rail system, we're gonna have to go at grade, and the community supported it because they want a rail system. So I guess it's unusual in the sense of what we have seen on other projects here in LA County.
So with the trains, the trains have signal priority, so there's a must stop every 30 minutes, every headway. I think that's manageable, right?
Well, that's what we're still trying to work out with City of LA. Yeah, we're still trying to work that out with City of LA. So right now, with the environmental process, there was some assumptions made, and now we're just trying to, you know, make sure City of LA understands it, agrees with it, so we can have more level of confidence in it.
Last question though, just
Sure.
on, because the Orange Line's already capacity as a BRT.
BRT,
And now you're
yeah.
dumping all the valley, North Valley into that, so is that, I mean, which is a good thing, right? But then
Yeah.
I'm just curious that,
Yeah.
you know, the Orange Line needs to be an LRT. That's my question.
Yeah, I mean, that's in the works too, right? The conversion, yeah.
That's what it was designed for to
Yeah.
begin with. The
Yeah.
Orange Line was really designed for a light rail.
You know what, it's funny how it's come full circle. I actually worked at North Hollywood Station, and I remember Orange Line, it was in the works, and it was supposed to be light rail, and then the community was like, well, we don't want light rail, because you're gonna kill everybody. And so it was like, it became BRT, and now it's like, you know, how many years later? Let's see, about 20 years later, it's like, now we want light rail. So, yeah, it takes some time, and now we come full circle, you know, so.
It'd be really good to get the city on board on exactly what you guys are gonna do and not do.
Yeah,
Up
yeah, and
down
that's,
that whole stretch.
and we're definitely trying that
Because
right now.
That's a deal killer on
Yeah.
every job.
Yeah, yeah, agreed, city, utilities, the stuff that we can't necessarily control, right? But I think if anything, because amazingly enough, I'm still working with some of the same people that I've worked with on North Hollywood or Red Line, Purple Line down there. We're all still working, we just move around. But Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like we've been through enough of this, and we wanna have fun, right? We wanna have a good project, we wanna go home at night and be able to relax, so to me, it seems like if anything, there's been a shift.
That's the first time I've heard you say that.
As much as, I mean, that'd be the goal, right, you know, so I think if anything, in meeting with city.
Sorry.
Catch up guard. I mean, I think people know, I mean, especially with the Olympics coming, we gotta get this done, you know, so we can't sit here and play some of the old games we used to play. So we gotta get it done. So I would say if anything, also, City Valet and, all the various, utilities, they also are busy working on other projects, right? So we just have to figure out a path forward and do it. So, yes.
So following up on his question, mine's more of a comment. So the subway option was actually more than twice the cost. It was 2.7 billion.
The total, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Measure R actually originally provided, I think, roughly 300 million for the BRT project.
yeah,
This was the estimate before 2016.
yeah.
And then when Measure M was drafted, they were able to get 1.3 needed for these. Originally, it was supposed to be the streetcar option, but this is what's known as like the hybrid option. It's light rail, but it's at surface, but without the 2-mile subway, which would have ran from Roscoe to Sherman Way.
Yeah, yeah.
Second comment is, yes, the Orange Line will be light rail in 2050.
Yeah, it's out there.
It's
It's out
committed in a sense, like
Yeah.
it's gonna happen, but
Yeah,
if you can wait 3 decades.
yeah. Yeah. Well, or unless I mean, in some cases, projects are being brought forward, right? So we're trying to get money to build them sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
So-
but the plan, it's already in the Measure M
Yes, it is.
long-range plan.
Yes,
So
yeah.
the important part is that it's already
It's-
set in stone in that sense, but the money flowing for that conversion is not gonna be flowing through until that time.
Correct, yeah, yeah. So, okay. Anything else? Yes,
Just,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think I'm reading between the lines
Okay,
with regards to signal prioritization,
okay.
that the city of Los Angeles is not on board with that yet. Would that be accurate, or?
No, I would say it's something that's a work in progress with them. We've just started advancing the design, so we've got several meetings ahead with them to figure this out. So I would say we're not there yet, but we're gonna try to get as far as we can. So when the design builder comes on board, we've got an understanding of what, how the system's gonna be run, what they're gonna be building, all of that. So this next year and a half is gonna be a lot of meetings with them to figure it out.
So just to follow up, what's
Sure.
the travel time difference between not having the signal prioritization and having it?
So, yeah, we don't know, because I mean, right now, like the environmental process made some assumptions, and like I said, it showed like a travel time of like 32 minutes, 34 minutes. We've done some analysis that showed it takes longer, but again, we're just starting the process now with City of LA to understand what it is that we can do to make the system work.
Okay, so I hope that
Yeah,
this situation,
Mhm.
I know maybe it's not Metro's job, and I'm not sure whose job it would be,
yeah,
but frankly, the stakeholders along the route, the neighborhood councils,
yeah,
need to know that this is an issue, because the difference, like for example, the Orange Line,
yeah,
14 miles on its own right-of-way, and
Yeah.
yet it is 50 to 55 minutes travel time with no prioritization.
yeah,
And so it would be, to me, a huge mistake to start off this project
Yeah.
without at least not having done that. I don't know why it wasn't done that way on the Orange Line to begin with,
yeah,
but the people who are suffering for those extensive travel times,
right,
you know, are probably not the people who are contributing to the political campaigns of the people in the city who are making these decisions for the state of Los Angeles. And I would submit that that's probably true for the folks along this line as well.
Yeah.
And they're all, you know, I mean, so anyway, I just think that word needs to get out there. I think that's very, very troubling.
And I think as part of the environmental process, it's been disclosed about the travel time for the train, but also the effect on traffic. Walt has been very transparent in that traffic's gonna get affected with this. The north-south, east-west direction, it's not gonna be what it is today. It's gonna be affected. And as we move forward with the design, we're gonna know more detail, and we're definitely gonna be sharing it with the public. It all starts with working with the city, right? We gotta get the technical side of it. We're also working closely with CD6 and CD7, community meetings, all of that. Yes, we, as much as possible, we try to limit surprises. We don't like surprises. I don't think the community necessarily likes surprises, especially if they're in the negative. So we'll do our best to keep the information flow out there. But I would say that we have been clear about traffic, removal of parking, all of that. Yeah, so I would say we'll continue to share that kind of information. And then if there's more information that is a concern to the public, then we'll try to share that too as much as possible. I would say if anything, these projects, rail projects, it's complicated. It's a lot of juggling and a lot of people and a lot of, unfortunately in some cases, difference of opinion or different ideas, and we're doing our best to try to manage it. And this is not the first rail project that we've worked on, and so we're trying to make it better because we've been through a lot of stuff. You know, with the community being upset, with yeah. So we're trying, but it is a difficult, challenging process here that we're trying to balance so many different things. Street running especially is challenging because we're not in a railroad right-of-way. We're right in the middle of a street that we don't own, that has businesses, that has residents out there. So we're trying, you know, to make sure that we keep you guys informed. And if we're not, then let us know and we'll try to do better. Okay, yeah.
Other than the City of Los Angeles, could you identify any governing bodies that need to get involved and where you are with that process?
Yeah, I mean, the other city that we're dealing with too, or working with too, is City of San Fernando. So we're already, we've been working with them. With City of San Fernando, they've got a new city manager that we've been working with. And he came from actually Culver City, so he is familiar with Expo, so he's familiar with the light rail system over there. So that's good. And we're starting the process with them as far as getting an MCA with them and showing them design. They are definitely interested in how we're going to be safely getting pedestrians across the right-of-way, our right-of-way out there. Right now, there are gates that are out there for Metrolink, but there's not pedestrian gates at every location. When we come in, Metro comes in, we provide most likely quad gates, pedestrian gates, so all of those grade crossings will get upgraded, and City of San Fernando is excited to see that too. So, but in addition to the cities, we're also working with the county public works, LA County Public Works, DWP, all the various City of LA family members, DOT, BOE, BSL, BSS, working with all of them. We've got communication lines out there, and Army Corps of Engineers. So, yeah, and we've already pretty much met with everybody. I personally have not met with the Army Corps of Engineers, but pretty much everybody is already aware. We're advancing the design and sharing information with us. So, yeah.
Good question about the capacity of the system. How much of it is regional, how much of it is local?
Oh, with the funding?
No, just
Or-
the capacity of the level of service.
Oh, sorry, with the ridership? Sorry. That's a good question. I don't know.
There's some constraint to the local with the parking and all this intersection.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be full, just trains going through the community? Is it gonna be like full trains going through the community?
Oh, you mean as far as like, are the trains gonna be full of passengers? Well, right now, when we do our analysis for the environmental, document, we project it out to 2040. So, we look at the passenger loading at that time, the ridership at that time. And, I believe in the environmental document out to 2040, I believe it's 36,000, for the system. So I'm not, I can't do that calculation in my head. To know if the trains will be fully loaded or not, but if anything has shown, when we open rail systems, they're usually,
More successful.
yeah. Which is a positive thing, yes.
Let's put
Yeah,
it this way,
yeah.
Van Nuys Boulevard is the sixth busiest transit corridor in the county.
Yes, yeah, bus, yeah.
And as someone who lives off Van Nuys Boulevard, I can tell you those buses are always packed. So when you put a light rail on that, they're gonna be at capacity. It's gonna be like a longer, it opens up to crush loads.
Yeah, because Van Nuys Boulevard, in all of the valley, not counting the Orange Line, is probably the only street that runs 60-foot buses.
Yeah, it's popular, yeah.
Is there a reason why it's all embedded track for the street running and not, ballasted track?
So right now, because we have such a constraint out there with right-of-way, we're not looking at ballasted track. Like on Crenshaw, they have ballasted track for some of the street running, but the cross-section actually gets bigger because we would, like on Crenshaw, there would be a fence,
Right.
a barrier on the outside. So when you have the barrier on the outside, then your cross-section gets bigger. So we're trying to go the other way, so.
So you still have a fence though, in the center?
The center, yeah, that's how we're doing it, so.
Kind of like what east side is,
East
Portion.
side, and I think,
down First Street in
Yeah.
Indiana?
yeah, and I think
That's
on
okay.
Expo 2 Center Line, okay, yeah, so. Okay.
That's why it's expensive.
Well, you got all these utilities and, yeah, 14 stations, 14 TPSS sites, maintenance facility, it's gonna be a standalone maintenance facility, there's nothing that we connect to. So, yeah.
Regarding grade crossing warning devices.
Yes.
Are most metro lines regular network type communication and signaling type system? That's like a yes/no question. And secondly, is anybody trying to suggest wireless grade crossing warning system?
Not, wireless I have not heard about.
Denver's had a big problem with it.
Denver?
Denver, yeah.
Yeah, we've got some people that worked on the Denver project that are working with us here. They haven't shared that with me, so I'm assuming it's not something they maybe want to replicate at this time, so. But as far as like the existing, or what we're gonna be putting in the proposed system, you were asking if it's part of a network?
Yeah, it's like
So-
we connected through a network.
Yeah, so I mean, well, I think what you're saying is like, does it go back to our rock? Is that what you mean?
No,
Go back
it's
to
like
our,
regular railroad grade crossings are like communication and
Yes.
signaling type of systems.
yes,
So most metro systems are, yes, that kind of system.
yes. So right now, if I understand your question correctly, yes. We have a duck bank, we have, well, you're talking about the grade crossing specifically. So yes, well, I guess at each of the grade crossings, yeah, okay, I'm getting a nod. From our systems guys?
I mean, they're all hardwired back to cases and boxes. It's not
Yeah.
a communication-based system right now.
Okay. All right. Oh, yes,
When you're doing your ridership projection,
yeah,
now, when you finally have a connection with the Sepulveda line to LAX,
mm-hmm,
you would have, I would anticipate you'd have a steep jump in ridership when that connection is made.
Yes, so that's, for the Sepulveda Transit Corridor, that is part of their environmental process, to look at the ridership, not just for their system, but also the systems that they're gonna be directly connecting with.
How much would the ridership increase the day you
Along-
make that connection?
Along East San Fernando Valley, or
To the-
specifically,
From yours to the Sepulveda line?
I don't have those numbers, but Sepulveda is studying it as part of their environmental process.
So
They
you're
will.
not considering that?
Well, when we went through our environmental process, Sepulveda, because Measure M had not passed yet, so it's not something that is part of the environmental process for East San Fernando. It is part of the environmental process for Sepulveda Transit Corridor. So they will be looking at what will be happening with the stations or the other systems that they connect with.
Well, if the ridership increases a lot, you'll have to accommodate it.
Yes, exactly, and that's why I'm saying Sepulveda is studying that as part of their environmental process. And so they would then also accommodate if there's something that needs to be adjusted for the stations that they're interacting with. So this is something what I would consider when Expo Line came into 7th and Metro, right? There was additional analysis done, there were some adjustments made to the stairs, right? All of that to address the ridership increase out there. Okay. All right. Anything else? All
Thank you, everybody, and let's give one last big hand to Monica. So, as far as an update goes, in about a year, what's going to happen? Maybe in a year, where we would have another meeting to follow up.
So I would say we'll be talking about the RFQ for the design builder.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for coming. We have our next meeting on November 14th, which is planes and trains, so it will be very interesting. Thank you very much, Monica. We'll see you, and don't forget the children.
I won't. They've been very quiet, so hopefully they're still here.